Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
Hello, and welcome to our Making Schools Work podcast. I'm Daniel Rock, an SREB senior instructional coach, and this is a follow-up episode to our previous two episodes with Richland High School. We hope you've had the opportunity to hear from the principal and assistant principal from that school. They talk extensively about systems they have to raise student achievement and teacher achievement through a restructured and reconfigured schedule that provides time for student enrichment as well as teacher learning. They also talk about how they've succeeded with their AP scores and have raised achievement across different metrics. They're one of our most proud pacesetter schools located in Rankin County, Mississippi. And we're really excited to have our third episode featuring their school. This time, we're going to speak with two teachers. I have with me one of our senior leadership coaches, Richard Morrison. Hello, Richard.
Hey, Daniel. It's great to be here on the podcast.
Awesome. Richard has been working extensively with this school, and the two teachers we have that he's been working with, along with the rest of the staff, are Joycelyn McDavid, a social studies teacher, and Jennifer Osborne, a career readiness teacher. Now, I'd like each of you just to quickly introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you teach, how long you've been in the business, and what it is that you're currently going to be teaching or what you were teaching last year. I know, Jennifer, you are changing positions. You will no longer be at the school next year, but that doesn't matter. You've been there for several years, so we want to hear your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for having me today. I was employed by Richland High School for 14 years. And during that tenure, I taught various English language arts classes, some sports and career readiness during that time. And it's been great.
And we're going to really want to hear from you about that college and career readiness, because you did some amazing activities breaking down the walls of the school so the kids experienced real world life in careers they might be interested in. We're going to get to that more in the second half of this episode. Also with us is Joycelyn McDavid. Joycelyn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me today. I'm Joycelyn McDavid. I have been an educator for almost a decade now. I've been with Richland High School for 5 years. Currently the AP history teacher on campus. I also serve as assistant testing coordinator, run PBIS, and sponsor student council. And just like Miss Jennifer Osborne, I've done everything from sports to just any activity that students have on campus. So I've been pretty involved.
So from listening to the Richland podcasts, the AP scores have gone up significantly, both taking courses and the actual scores. So hearing from you, Joycelyn, is really going to be helpful because you can really give us some nuts and bolts about what the school did to make that happen. So we're going to have two big topics today. The first big topic I want to hear from you all about is the flex block. So flex block is something that we see in different schools where students have options to choose where they want to go certain days of the week based on academic need, clubs, enrichment opportunities. I've been in schools where it works nicely, and I've been in schools where it's a free-for-all, and nobody knows where the students are. And if you need to find a student, you got to do an all call because nobody knows where they are, and they may not be anywhere. And I've seen it work highly effectively where kids have a meaningful experience. The second thing we're going to talk about is the career-connected, not internship, but job shadowing experiences that were built into the course, weren't part of the normal curriculum, but that Jennifer built into the curriculum to give students opportunities to not just learn about careers, but to experience them. So that's going to be our big topics today. So let's think about how flex time became a platform for growth in your school. What is flex time at your school? Joycelyn, can you tell us about what it is real briefly? You don't have to go too into detail since we had an earlier episode on it.
Sure. So Flex Time offers our students and our teachers an opportunity to either work in the academic sector or in some sort of extracurricular. It's time that's not a part of class. It is its own separate time.
Do you mind if I jump in here?
Go for it, Jennifer.
Because Joycelyn and I were in the same place at the same meeting at one point, and it was about 3 years ago. And we were talking about ways, and it was what was it called, Joycelyn? The principal
Teacher Advisory Committee.
Yeah, the Teacher Advisory Committee. And we were talking about the particular challenges that Richland High School faces. And a lot of our students are migratory. They come in, they go out. A lot of them have, single working families. It's just the dynamic of Richland can be pretty tough. We have a lot of students that just move in and out of school. And like from our school to another school, and then they come back. It's crazy, the percentage of students. And so we wanted to look at ways as a teacher advisory committee that we could maybe start drawing in students and getting them more invested. And I think this was like the flex time fed completely into that conversation, and because it offered both the academic side and then opportunities. So we had, as far as the enrichment part of flex, so one of the days was more academically minded, and the second day was more enrichment. And teachers could pick a passion and start teaching on that. So as far as the enrichment side, if you needed to grab a student, you could schedule time with them. So that was good, like smaller size classes, and you could remediate or do something like that. Or if you were a tested subject and you have certain students that are dealing with something, then you could build some time in to reteach and rehash those things with a smaller group. But then the enrichment side, and I know we're going to get into this later, but it also ties into my CCR class.
Please.
Is because a lot of these students that I would get in CCR class, they had nothing to put on an academic resume. Like they weren't bought into the school. And so that goes back to that conversation about 3 years ago where we were like, how do we get students involved, locked in? Pep rallies get better. Just the culture in the hallways get better when you go to some teacher and you may be, I don't know, learning how to paint, with a teacher that loves painting. And suddenly you have a rapport with not only that teacher, an adult, a trusted adult at school, but then, the other people that you're with, the club. And then say that teacher puts you in charge of acquisition of the next project. Well, then you could put that on your academic resume that you were in a club and you were the secretary. You see what I'm saying? Like it just feeds into
opportunities,
everything that just opportunities
all
across and all.
Yeah. That's so critical. And so one of the problems that you're trying to solve is student investment in the school and student ownership of the school and students feeling like it's something that they belong to. But then also what I'm hearing you say, Jennifer, is it was giving them opportunities trying to give them more opportunities for leadership, for active participation in something school-based, even if it's just a personal passion. And what also, Jennifer, you're talking about the teacher's passions. So I may be a chemistry teacher, but I love painting. So I'm going to use that time for painting and teaching kids how to paint and get me excited about that. Anything you can add, Joycelyn, about sort of what the values and big ideas behind your school's vision of flex time? What was it that you all were really trying to accomplish with this?
I really think it was more so to provide the students with an array of opportunities that kind of open the outside world to them. A lot of our students, because of our socioeconomics, don't ever leave where we're from. And so by bringing the world into the doors of the schools, we really did, connect them to the world beyond just the academic discourse, providing them with just opportunities that they would not normally have.
Throw out some of the different clubs you saw that came up that kids enjoyed. What were some of the ones that kids really got into?
One of my favorites that was actually one of my coworkers down the hallway in the social studies department. Her club was to take Play-Doh and to build monuments from around the world. And the kids absolutely loved it. They would take a picture and build with Play-Doh to mimic that. And then in my own club, we did crafting because I absolutely have a passion for crafting, and a lot of students do. And so I was able to give them an opportunity to just kind of express, their own creativeness.
All right, well, maybe we'll get your Pinterest out there. Do you have a Pinterest site that you're selling from?
I don't know. I just enjoy crafting on a personal level.
Okay. Jennifer, what were some of the ones that you saw that you thought were like really inspired choices by some of the teachers? Or what was your own?
Okay. Yeah, I saw some leadership classes, like some leadership groups. Some of the coaches took some young men and taught leadership skills. There were fashion classes. There were self-care classes. Some had these little figurines that they painted. I had a strategy, a strategy game class. I really enjoyed that. There was another one about national parks. We dove in and looked at whatever park that they wanted to look at. And that was really fun too. So
Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say this was started because teachers and students, Daniel, if you remember in the CIR, when we did the interviews, they talked about they had something that was called zero block, but they weren't reaching enough kids. A lot of the kids that they wanted to reach weren't coming to that because it was basically before school. And so we talked about finding ways to reach kids during school time. We control when it starts and when it ends. So what can we do for students while they're there? And so this began by that idea, and then the school, the teachers, and the students, they just, it grew to what it is, now. And I think what I love about it is they're constantly evaluating how can we improve it even more.
And just to be clear, the curriculum and the CIR stands for Curriculum Instruction Review. In our earlier episode, we briefly sort of go through how that was really a launching pad where through interviews and surveys and observations and all kinds of artifacts, we provided some ideas and sort of a reflection back in the school, and that helped them get going. Just to be clear, with FlexBlock, it was twice a week, and one day was more of this teacher passion day, and I wouldn't just say fun, but enrichment, and another day was more academically focused for extra help and support. They're nodding their heads saying yes. Okay, good. It is an audio medium, so I have to let everyone know. Excellent. And so a teacher would be doing one of those two each week, and they would be doing PD or teacher-led small group study teams during the other day. Is that accurate?
Wednesdays was academics, Thursdays was the enrichment, and then if we needed to go to a teacher-led group or whatever, then we would schedule that in for like once a month or something like that. And some people took an entire quarter to go to a teacher-only group. So it had to depend on the day, and it was all just scheduling. Joycelyn probably knows more about it than the app that was used to schedule all of the events.
So the teachers, if there was teacher study groups though, that met regularly during that time, during FlexBlock.
Correct.
So you weren't doing necessarily both of those FlexBlocks each week. You were doing a FlexBlock, and then you were doing a teacher study group.
Yeah. Cool. Normally the way that it worked this past year, on Wednesdays, we provided an academic block. So teachers, like I would be in my AP course, FlexBlock, providing that support to my students. And then usually on Thursdays enrichment, that's where some teachers will be pulled to do that teacher-led teacher learning. One awesome aspect of that, having the flexibility to be able to do that. When we had a lot of new teachers last year, and the very first 9 weeks, their enrichment block was helping them acclimate to the school, supporting them as they taught, support their students.
Can you tell us a little bit from a teacher perspective how you went from it being like, what is this new thing that we're doing? It's probably just going to come and go. Look at them trying to be creative, to, okay, click. This is working for me now. This is working for the kids and it's working for me. Was there a moment where that kind of happened? Like something where you saw how this could be useful and really impact both you and the kids?
I can speak from the AP teacher perspective. There is
Please.
not enough time in the day to cover the amount of materials that we have to cover, even going to school the 1st of August and getting ready for that AP exam the first week of May. So class time is very crunched. And so I was really it really clicked when I started using my Flex Walk to help my students develop their writing skills more, help them improve how to be a better test taker, or whatever their need was for the AP class. That really clicked for me about, okay, this is very useful, not only for myself, improving my own instructional process, but helping them be more successful as well in an AP class.
Was it logistically difficult to get kids where they were supposed to be and make sure that they were there? Was that a lot of work?
Well, I think the first year it was because, it's something new, using a very new system and taking attendance, making sure that students are signed up. That was difficult at first, but I would say probably after the first 9 weeks or the second 9 weeks of that very first year, it really just became a natural process. We knew that Wednesdays were academics, Thursdays were your enrichment, and that you had to be scheduled for those by Monday. And so teachers would take the time in class to make sure their students were scheduled. And so I think it just became a natural process to how the school ran each week.
Can you share any sort of examples of really you saw a student use this time powerfully to really grow, where if they didn't have this, you may not have seen the same spark or the same change in them?
Absolutely. Just this year, one of my AP students, I teach 10th through 12th grade AP students. And for students just coming into high school, taking AP courses can be very daunting. They're not used to the level of rigor in those classes. And so many times they come in very nervous about how they're going to perform at the end of the year. Are they going to be able to learn everything in time to take the test? And so one student in particular this past year came in very nervous. And I used my flex time wisely to help that student grow, be confident in their ability to learn the materials, to learn how to write in the AP style and prepare for that test. And that student was successful on this past year's AP exam.
How many students usually come into that AP sort of extra time? And they have to volunteer, I'm assuming. You can't force them in there, can you?
No. So I have to offer it. I usually offered it multiple times. I obviously incentivized coming to that AP block to, support them in preparing for their AP exam. And most times I would have varied numbers, anywhere from 10 to 15 students in the AP block. My AP students even intermingled, and the AP history exams writing is very similar for most of the AP history exams. And so I usually could get most of my students to come in, just offering multiple times to come into the AP block.
If we go back to our episode with Heather, the assistant principal, she talked about that was a strategy that you all used. Let's find AP tests that have transferable skills, right? So let's dig into some of these social studies tests or humanities type tests that our kids have done decently in, but we can get them to take multiple classes, but the skills transfer. It's a similar type of essay. So I can see how that time can actually be exponentially successful. Jennifer, any student experiences that you could highlight where you saw them use that time, whether it was the enrichment sort of, I'll call it fun time or, passion project time versus, they use that time to grow individually and become more interested in and invested in the school?
There were several examples, as far as the camaraderie and the connection that teachers could foster between students that they may not teach. And like for that, one of the first ones that we did, the national parks one, I had students from 7th grade all the way up, and I generally taught 11th and 12th grade students. And so it was a neat mix to meet younger students and to see kind of what their passions were as far as the National Park Service and, their styles of how to navigate. And then I had 9 weeks, I offered resume writing, to anybody. And I had a 7th grader come in, and that was a little bit tougher. And we talked about why and maybe some of the strategies that this child could use throughout the next several years to build his resume. He was going to college. He was serious about it. And, I got to talk to a 9th grader, and that's a really magic time too for students to come in and start understanding what they can do to really launch themselves for the next step. So it was neat.
That is great. I'm trying to imagine the 7th grader wanting to write his resume. I mean, that kid's going to be a CEO, no doubt about it.
He had a parent on site, so
okay.
She's a go-getter too.
Did he come to school in a bow tie?
No.
And what I also heard you both say, I think, is there something about the relationship building that happens there too? In those other classes, as well as your academic class, you're able to talk to them almost on a somewhat different level. And there's opportunities for some mentoring happening there as well. So let's shift a little bit to the teacher growth. I think I've seen several different iterations of what we just described, and it sounds like your school really took it and ran. What I haven't heard or seen before is the idea of using flex time strategically for teacher learning and teacher growth. Getting substitutes is a big challenge. So getting teachers out of the building or in the building for the day to do a traditional professional learning is very hard and often more work for the teacher than if they had been in the classroom, but valuable as an instructional coach and leader of professional learning. I think it's a worthy investment. That said, your school decided to create a structure where teachers self-select into small groups in order to study certain things. Joycelyn, tell us a little bit about what that time was for teacher growth and how you chose to use that time.
Yes. So I think I talked earlier about the enrichment part where we would self-select to those groups during certain time periods, usually for 9 weeks. I actually work closely with the career coach. I work closely with the instructional coach, and we were trying to bridge a gap between all of our teachers. We'd be in that 7 through 12 school. We have over 700 students. So it's very hard for us to meet as departments or to meet cross-curricular. And so helping other teachers grow in their own instruction and see other teachers instruct is very difficult. And so the 9 weeks that I participated in the teacher-led group, what we did is we self-selected. It was really neat because we self-selected several different content areas, and we came together and discussed what our goals were for our personal instruction and what we would like to use what we do know to help the school. And when we came together, we not only shared ideas, things that worked in our class, helped other teachers in other subject areas adapt to meet their needs, but we also talked about building a platform to help teachers in the future in this same manner because we found it very beneficial, just the discussion between us and then the learning that took place.
So how many teachers were in this group?
The group that I was in was about 10 teachers. So it's a pretty small group.
And it was multiple content, multiple grade levels.
Yes, we had all 4 major disciplines represented in that group, as well as some other disciplines as well.
What was the choice? Like when you came together, was there a drop down you picked, or how was this group formed?
So the way our instructional coach did this, because she offered it multiple times, you could sign up for a 9 weeks class with her. And so she set minimal and a maximum number of teachers that she would need for that group. And each time she fortunately had teachers wanting to be a part of that little learning during Flex. We were just fortunate that ours represented a large variety of disciplines.
So she facilitated it, and you all shared different goals that you had for yourself. Can you tell us
Yes.
what were some of the what was the goal that you put forward that you wanted to work on?
One of the goals that I wanted to do was to do more cross-curricular instruction in my own class. Social studies can kind of feel very isolating because we really only match up with English language arts with reading and writing, but I really wanted to bring in some of the other subject areas into my own classroom so that when we're talking about the historical content, students can draw connections between their other classes and what they're learning in my class.
That is a very worthy goal. We talk about learning as sometimes I refer to it as surface learning, deep learning, and then transfer. And learning how to transfer some of these skills to different classes is one of the highest levels of intellectual challenge. But it also is something that is interesting to kids because it becomes more generalizable. So my next question is, how did this experience help you actualize that desire? What about that cohort over the 9 weeks? What happened in there that made you able to achieve it, assuming that you did?
I really think that the sharing between the disciplines is what made me able to take that back to my classroom. Because when the math teacher got up and shared what they do in their class, a lot of it was focused on literacy as well. So what they would teach, how they taught literacy in their class, and what I took those strategies back to my class and used them with my students, even in AP class, because it did translate. Sometimes it can be very difficult, but when the teacher who is actually doing that instruction helps you see what they do and then helps you adapt it to your class, that was very beneficial to me.
Can you give an example of something that you did that you wouldn't have done had you not been in there? A cross-curricular?
The thing that comes to mind is one of the science teachers that was in that class about how with AP being a lot of content, when you're trying on the AP test, you have to write very specific things to gain points and to be successful in the writing. And sometimes it's hard for kids to keep up with who we've talked about, what their contribution is to society, especially if it has a science piece in there. And the AP curriculum does have that for history class. And so I learned from the science teacher how to read and understand what the contributions were and how to draw little anecdotes from what they contributed to society in the historical aspect. And so I took that strategy and back to my students, especially in my AP Euro class. And those students did a lot better when we reviewed, that section or the points on science related content.
Learning how to learn, right? Learning how to learn strategies, how to pull information from a text, how to approach a science text versus a social studies text. But a lot of science text has important background and important history and who the people were and the context. And that's what history is. It's all context. So you were able to make those connections and use similar strategies.
Correct.
Jennifer, can you give us some of your experiences of growth? How did you use that teacher time of that group?
I was able to participate in a book study and on differentiation of instruction. And it was really great because, like Joycelyn said, you saw teachers from all different disciplines and how a science teacher or a math teacher might, or even an art teacher might we can all use kind of some of the same strategies. And what does it look like in another class? And how can I augment this to maybe, I don't know, fit a different kind of student in? Because sometimes it's easy to know how I best learn and teach that way. And so when I see somebody approach a strategy differently, like, well, that would really work well with kids that learn in a different way than, what I'm very kinesthetic. I like to lay things out and put it in color and do things like that. And sometimes to see like a science teacher really break down a very specific part of instruction into a strategy he uses for bell ringers, just to kind of break it down in a step-by-step and very, anyway, it was just really neat to see like hexagonal idea bubbles and how
Hexagonal
ideas
thinking.
travel across different
Yeah.
ways. You're are using maps and charts, and it was really, really instructive to see, oh wow, you can talk about color and in the way that I'm thinking about writing or reading. You can also use that to talk about color in art, and then maybe even bring in some of those ideas to incorporate. And so then you're using more parts of your brain, or the students are.
So tell me a little bit about which of the you just named like 5 different great practices. Which of those really came into your classroom? Like actually, you took time to try to bring in. Anything come to mind?
Oh, definitely the Wicked Hydra and the hexagonal learning. And I really did a lot of that with my AP English class.
Excellent. So did you teach AP this year also? In addition, this year you just taught careers. I mean, that was your,
AP Lang and Comp was mine. It was
for years. That's your.
no. It doesn't. No, I have not taught it for very long, so I'm still on the learning curve.
Okay. So last question about the flex block before we move to job shadowing. What makes the system work? What are some of the keys as a teacher? Because I see a lot of teachers probably listening to this thinking, yeah, we tried that. Right. And the kids are everywhere, or they don't keep track, or it's not consistent. What were some of the routines and expectations that allowed this to work past the first 6 weeks?
I really think that getting it off the ground was probably the most instrumental in it being successful long term. As Miss Osborne said at the beginning, we met as a teacher advisory committee talking about how can we offer these things to our students. And it started as a collaborative project between the administrators and the teachers, the rest of the staff, building it up, because it was scary at first. But when we came together in that discussion and the collaboration together, I really think is what made it, maintain for the long run.
So the collaboration among teachers and administrators, not just a top down, but a sort of teamwork. Jennifer?
And there were also gentle reminders if maybe we got busy and we didn't plug in our classes. As teachers, we were supposed to plug in our offerings by Friday so that the students could sign up on Monday. And I won't say how many emails I got, but I had a few gentle reminders. Hey, you didn't do this on Friday before you left. And so I would hop on there. And so students could, and we had a designated time and we had an announcement so that students would know it's time to go on and pick your offerings for that week.
So what I'm hearing you say, Jennifer, is there was a teacher accountability system. Somebody had a system, had a spreadsheet or a dashboard, and was able to determine which teachers had created and which hadn't, and provide those kind, professional, and gentle reminders, which I'm sure you only needed once, and then you had it perfect after that. Richard, is there anything you want to add about the system of the school? Someone says this could never work at our school, and you wanted to point to what this school did successful with FlexBlock. Anything you would point to?
Well, I think they've talked about it. The one thing that I saw was teamwork, is that this wasn't just top down. They got the shareholders involved in making this work. And then I also believe what they just talked about was the accountability, is that maybe just because something didn't work the right way in the beginning, they just kept at it because they thought it was valuable enough to make sure that they found a way for it to work.
So it was an agenda item on those leadership meetings regularly, and what's working and what's not working.
Well, it was also nice that you could alter and change things after a 9-week period. You weren't locked into it for half of a year or an entire year.
And I believe Joycelyn, you mentioned to me that it also led to some classroom observations where you would go and observe other teachers. Is that accurate?
Yes. So that was a part of my little teacher-led group. Well, actually, we did have some teachers who would go and observe other flex clubs too, especially some of our new teachers, to see how they utilize that enrichment block. And then also amongst the group of teachers that I was with, we actually were able to plan out when we could go and observe other teachers instructing to help our own growth.
So you in the group would talk about things you're doing, and then you would say, and I'm going to try it this day, or you're going to try it that day. And you could visit each other during those days, but it's based on the topic. It's not just come to my class. It's based on what our book study is or our problem of practice.
Especially for the instructional coach, she was probably the most helpful for me because there were some areas in AP, like in teaching content, that I wanted to improve. And she's been a teacher for a lot longer than I have. And so during that time when we were planning for observations, I was able to even have her come and watch me instruct some of the strategies that I learned and give me feedback so that I could try it again if I felt like it was not successful the first time.
Daniel, that was very strategic in the sense that as far as in our coaching meetings that I had with the administrators, we looked at research, and especially with John Hattie, and to see that the biggest impact on student achievement was collective teacher efficacy. So we talked about, how does that look? What does that look like in a school? And so this kind of evolved, from that. And also another high point.
Effect size?
Yeah. Another high one with John Hattie is also feedback. So we were able to use the research and then to think strategically how we're going to make this look in the school.
Excellent. So Jennifer, let's talk about job shadowing. And let's talk about how you built this program for students could leave the school or work virtually to shadow other people. How did this program begin in your class?
As a class, college and career readiness is all about the next steps after high school. And so for me, in-person experience there's nothing that can replace it. To have students decide on maybe a career STEM and go find an adult out there in the world that will say, hey, hang out with me for 9 hours is a powerful tool for them to really engage with that career and decide whether or not they want to spend the time and money in pursuing that further. And I start the class every year by say, look, you may decide you want to be a chef and go and job shadow as chef for 9 hours, take the pictures, create that connection with somebody that's really doing it, and say at the end of the year, that's what you don't want to do. Well, you are successful. You're successful whether you fall in love with it, whether you are thinking, well, maybe I can, do something a little bit different, maybe in that field, but different. Or look, I love it and I'm all in. You're successful any way you shake it. So that's kind of where we start with from the year. And Richland High School has a great career coach that helps them if they need it. Not everybody needs it, but I started it as a requirement this year for each of my class members to go and have 3 sessions with her throughout the year and to talk about their plans and the next steps. And she does everything from FAFSA to internships, to the job shadowing, to job placement. She's been really a valuable asset to Richland High School in general. And she truly wants to meet as many students as possible. So sometimes she would open her flex block to schedule with students that weren't otherwise able to come to her during other times at school. So
tell me about some of the places that the kids got to go work.
My own son used her services to go to job shadow a medical design company, like a machine type shop. But he job shadowed a person that dealt with creating new medical devices. I think it was like prosthetics or something.
Right.
But he doesn't want to do that. He's going into a different field. But she had everything from welders. She has so many connections into our community and our area beyond what I do. I mean, I had been at the school for 14 years, so I had met a lot of people and taught and made connections with a lot of different families. And so I have called upon some of them, if they're a business owner, or say it's an attorney or a realtor that I know, and I can, make that connection for the kids. But they were asked to do 9 hours, and hopefully on different days, so that, some days you love your job, and some days are a little bit more difficult than others. But I wanted them to see somebody in a career path that they were interested in more than one day.
How many students are we talking about?
This last year, it was about 70.
So how do you organize 70 students into 70 different job shadows?
Well, these are mostly 11th and 12th graders, mostly 12th graders. So they are looking to spread their wings. Sometimes a lot of them, if they were going into the medical field, that was a little bit different of a job shadowing. So Miss Anderson, with her links to UMMC, that was very, very helpful for a lot of them. Or we just had to maybe alter it a little bit. Say they wanted to go into counseling, so we would send them to a school counselor across the street, something related, some sort of job STEM. And usually the adults that they met with, it was a snafu it's a lot of work for the front office and for Dr. Stewart.
The principal, Mr. Stewart.
Yes, yeah. The attendance office and Dr. Stewart had to clear all of the hours, and there were even some students that got so excited that they wanted to do more hours than 9. And they had to say, slow your roll. You can't miss any more class for job shadowing.
Students could research and find their own courses, something that they're interested in.
Absolutely. Well, the district purchased for each student a subscription to, I said it the other day and I can't remember.
Because
I'm trying to think of it. Thank you. So the district purchased for every student U-Science, and it's a brain-based game learning. And so it kind of matches their aptitude with what they're good at, how their brain works well with different career paths. And so that's kind of the baby steps in the class. And for many students, it opened up opportunities. For a lot of students, it solidified what they already knew about their strengths. So then they could go ahead and forge ahead. I've had the teachers and their families are very helpful too. Like Miss McDavid, her husband has helped several years in a row with students, and even doing like the bankers in the classroom. So we had people in my class, I would have them come in and talk about their various career stems, anywhere from the various branches of the military to court reporting, things that kids maybe don't hear about as opportunities for careers very often. And they ate it up. They love learning about these different people. And then offered them opportunities for mock interview on campus, where I'd have colleges come in and do a practice interview for, say, an educational scholarship type situation, or various community members that they could have a more of a career type interview.
What I'm hearing is this idea of everybody in the school is participating. So you've got your admin is obviously helping grease the wheels logistically. Your teachers are coming to you and the students with opportunities. My husband does this. My cousin does this. My friend does this. I know I've got kids who are interested. The community is coming into the school, sharing careers as well, not just career day, but student interaction with project, right? Interview, which is a project-based basically assignment with a real world audience. And that's a connection moment where they can see what different career people do and talk to them and different jobs. And then the students are doing their own research on what's interesting to them. So it's a multi-pronged approach here that you have.
Well, at the end of the year, they have a capstone presentation where they put together various points of research that they've done, including their job shadowing experience, into their final grade.
Can you, either Jennifer or Joycelyn or Richard, can you highlight any student success stories where you saw them step out of the school building or out of their, comfort little student box into the world and where that had an impact on them?
I can speak from some of my students because I taught mostly 11th and 12th graders for the first couple of years at Richland. And I've been a part of Ms. Osborne's sitting in and getting to evaluate the student's presentation at the very end. And several of the students that I've had over the years have been very shy in class, very unwilling to speak at the beginning of the year, just about history, much less getting up in front of their teachers who are evaluating their presentation. And so I can name a handful of students who have taken Ms. Osborne's class and that project, and it has helped transform them into better speakers. Even I know many students have come back after they participated in the interview process. Even with my husband, they said that they had no idea that that's what an interview was like. And so they just gained a lot of confidence in their ability to speak, to participate in something like this interviews, and just present in general. So
Jennifer, any sort of where you saw any transformation or, real impact on students?
There have been students that are checked out. I know if I could name them, but I won't. Checked out. And I've even had one student that said, I was going to leave in November. I was dropping out of school, and something you said in class, an assignment that we did, helped me realize that, yes, I can. One boy came to me this last year and said, this is what I want to do. I finally found it, when I had a speaker from the FBI come in and talk about cybersecurity. A reticent student that didn't want to go in and do an interview because they're like, I don't need a job right now, and I don't have to do an interview, so I don't want to do it for your class. But then they walk out with a smile, because they've made a good connection with a community member. We had students with offers to intern with a bank, our local bank, throughout the summer. It's just magic when you get people involved from the community.
It is. It really is. Well, I really appreciate you both taking this time to talk with us about Richland and how you're building student really ownership in the school, and students able to not just pursue their academic interests, but their personal interests, and the teachers able to pursue their professional interests and bring their personal interests into the school. And then the same really with the community. It's really a sort of all hands on deck approach to building a learning school. One thing a colleague used to tell me is the schedule is a reflection of the school's values. So how would you say this schedule that you've created, so sort of our final question, what values do you think that reflects on your school?
Well, I don't have a dog in the race for next year, so I can say it without fear or failure. Our administrative team, I have watched them over the last several years take chances and let their teachers take chances on, some of these different ideas. And then when they let us, and they are the support to us, the teacher, the practitioner in the classroom, then when they ask something of us like this flex, and most of the teachers that I know, when we first started it, were like, how in the world are we going to fit this in the day? And what is it going to look like? And then it winds up being magic. So it's kind of a reciprocal thing. They support us. And so when they come to us with ideas of how to fix some of the problems that we have seen in the school, then we have buy-in because there's trust there. And so I think that it's just been a great improvement all the way around from the student who is really the person that matters at the school. Because I would say the one thing that I think Richland High School has hit the nail on the head is that we truly do want to educate the child completely. It's not just academics. We can't just send them out the door anymore with just being able to pass a test. And they have really kind of knocked down the doors of the school. Our front office lady, I hear from her all the time that the graduated students are trying to come back and see teachers. They're like, leave them alone. So Richland High School is a really, really special place.
Awesome. Joycelyn, any final words?
Yeah, so to piggyback off Miss Osborne, I really think that our administrative team and really our school as a whole has just embraced what we have heard plenty of the last few years, and that's to have a growth mindset, to leave your small little box and to explore the world around you. And this opportunity of Flex and the doors that has opened has done that, not just for the students, but for the teachers, and really engaging the community so that we become a school that values all aspects of what makes a school great to support our students.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations on being a pace setter school. And we look forward to just hearing all about all the great things you do next year as you try to, we didn't have a chance to talk about it, but as you try to include Flex into your daily daily schedule. And yes, Jennifer, good luck on your journey into a new school this year. I'm sure it'll be great.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit sreb.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.